Welcome back to Recap Kickback. It's me, your host, Chappell. And today we are going to recap the newest, show from an Olympian, a gold medal Olympian, that is available on Peacock today. And that is Mr. Throwback, the sitcom of sorts, the mockumentary. What exactly is this? What exactly is this? And what are we talking about today? We're talking about Mr. Throwback, the Steph Curry show that is on Peacock, 6 episodes about the tale of a child who is a young basketball phenom who will later on go on to form a relationship, I guess a friendship with Steph Curry, and all the shenanigans that ensue amongst the two of them. I guess that's the best way I can put this. It's short, but we're going to talk about it all here on Recap Kickback today. And with me, of course, to talk about what we just watched, Mr. Throwback, it's Tyrone. Tyrone, what's up?
What is up? I was going to ask you, what do you call this? Like, I tried looking it up. I don't know. Mockumentary, I guess, is the thing that I kind of came into with this one. But yeah, I'm good. I'm ready to talk. I'm ready to talk about it because it was a very interesting show, for sure, and the style and the way that they presented themselves, a little bit unique, a little bit different than what you're probably used to on a regular show. So, yeah, let's talk about it.
Yes, 6-part mockumentary series with Steph Curry as the lead, but this very much has nothing to do with Steph Curry in real life. Like when they say mockumentary, they really mean it. And so we're definitely going to talk about all that and more here. Thanks to everybody for listening to Recap Kickback and subscribing. Last week, we had Asia on as our special guest to talk about Divorce in the Black. And is that like clickbait? Is Tyler Perry playing with us? Is he trolling us? I mean, they took a body out of the casket at the funeral. So, we had a lot of opinions about Divorce in the Black. Check that out here on Recap Kickback. Have you seen it?
Yes, I'll say it in the first 5 minutes of the movie. There's somebody being pulled out of a casket. Yeah,
we talked about it here. But Ty, what was your opinion about the movie in general? Did you like it?
No, I absolutely abhorred it. Like, it was a terrible movie. Like, we watched it, me and the missus watched it, right? And then my daughter, she was like, yeah, I want to watch that new movie, that new Tyler Perry movie. And I said, I'm not watching that again. I'm not watching it again. But it is, I will say this though, it is one of those movies where it's kind of like you had to at least give it a chance. You had to see it to see all the shenanigans that was involved. There was plenty of you had to be there. There was plenty of shenanigans. So it's kind of like if you watched the episode, the Recap Kickback episode last week, and you hear me talking about it, and multiple people might have said, this is a terrible movie, this is trash. Like, sometimes you got to watch the trash movies to be like, yo, this is hilarious. Of why? How is Tyler Perry getting away with this? That's the question that I keep coming up with.
Listen, we definitely asked that question and more on the podcast, so check that out. It was a fun time having Asia on for the first time. Mari and I thoroughly enjoyed her, and we're going to talk about more Tyler Perry in the future, I'm assuming, because it don't seem like he's going to change his game at all. But speaking of game changers, we're here to talk about Steph Curry and whatever this Mr. Throwback show is. So we know that Steph Curry is a recent gold medal Olympian. This will be Steph's journey into television as far as I know. I've never seen Steph Curry anything else, but Mr. Throwback, to me, was surprisingly it was kind of good, Ty. I'm not going to lie to you. I enjoyed this a lot. What about you?
I laughed a good bit. I would say, the actual lead on the show, I can't remember his name. Adam. Okay, thank you. I've seen him on a couple of shows before. I think he was on a show with Damon Wayans Jr. One time before.
Happy Endings.
Happy Endings, thank you. A show that I watched. And then he was on like the recent Sonic series, or Knuckles series as well. That was on Paramount or whatever. So his style of humor is pretty much the same. I think I didn't really like how he acted on Knuckles. I thought he was a little bit too over the top, but I thought this really matched the vibe that you got from him on Happy Endings. And it made me appreciate it more because this is what I like from him. So, no, I thought it was funny. I thought his delivery was on point for the most part. And so I think he did a good job leading the charge of this surprisingly funny mockumentary.
Yeah, we're gonna figure out what to call this. It's a comedy series for sure, and I believe it's ranking in top 5 of Peacock's original comedy series as of right now. So it's doing really well. Not surprisingly, of course, according to Deadline, 77% of the accounts who watch Mr. Throwback also watched basketball at the Olympics. And so there's a lot of overlap there. We talked about the Olympics here on Recap Kickback. LaTanya came on to talk about Simone Biles and the gymnastics. And then, of course, I had DJ Mighty Mouse come on to talk about the track and field sprint events prior to the Olympic Games. But since the Olympic Games, I think that Steph Curry has been able to highlight this using the Olympics, but also using Peacock. Peacock was such a big part of the Olympics that it's no surprise to me, Tyrone, that this show is going to lean into that and then take it and flip it into a TV series. I just wasn't expecting this TV series.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm wondering how quickly they actually made this, because there was the reference to the Olympics we'll get to in the last episode. And then they also made some like current Twitter references. Did you get the Hawk Tour reference that they had?
Yeah.
So it's like that just happened. That literally just happened like maybe a month or two ago. So how quickly did they actually make this to set up to it? I think it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if this is one of those timeless things that we'll be talking about for years and years to come. I don't think anybody's demanding a season 2 of Mr. Throwback, but it was a fun watch, and I have a lot of parts of this that I want to talk about. So for it to be 30 minutes per episode, I thought that each episode was hilarious. I thought that the cast was really good. No disrespect to Steph Curry, but he's probably the weakest one in the cast. He's not an actor. He's not a comedian, but I think he held his own amongst these funny moments. What did you think about the way the show portrayed Stephen Curry in this series? Because I think we know Steph Curry is kind of like, this phenomenal basketball player, but this was it was very personal, even though it was fake,
Yeah, I think it matches the vibe of what you get from Steph Curry, which is like, life is great. And so because life is so great, I'm going to lean into some of the things that people talk about me, like some of the things that you mentioned being soft or something like that. Or he doesn't come off as, in a lot of ways, like maybe having this like a bravado or all about himself. But in this show, you saw some of that type of stuff or whatever, or things like that. So it's kind of like, I think it just really matches everything that you assume about Steph Curry, and that, like I said before, life is great. Like you feel like this guy doesn't have a bad day in his life, right? Other than when he maybe loses, you know what I mean? Because he's competitive. But you feel like he doesn't have a bad day in his life, and he fully leans into all of that and all of the things that people maybe even say negatively about him, which is great. It's great to see.
Are you a Steph Curry fan?
Light skin unite. Like,
you didn't have to say light skin twice. We got it.
Light skin unite. Light skin unite. I'm all in on Stephen Curry. I'm all in on Stephen Curry. That's like, he changed the game, right? I wouldn't call him the best, but he definitely changed the landscape of how you play in the NBA. Everybody is going to be following his footsteps. So you're going to see like people 5-10 years from now that's trying to outmatch the way that he shoots the ball, the three ball. So yes, I'm a huge Stephen Curry fan, and I just like that it feels like he's just floating on air everywhere he damn goes. Like it feels like nothing bothers him. I love that. Like, I appreciate that.
I feel like that's what you're right. They leaned into the idea that Steph is just this guy who can pretty much do no wrong. I think that a large percentage of his population that hates him because he does make it look so easy. You know what I'm saying? The 3-pointer is the 3-pointer because it's difficult. That's why it's worth an extra point, But this man has made it his entire personality is to be able to shoot the 3-pointer. And so that's got to be frustrating for people. You're changing the way basketball is played. He's not controversial. There's very few things that Steph Curry himself has ever done where people are like, I don't like that for Steph. Don't get me wrong. Everybody has done something. But for the most part, They hate him because he just doesn't seem like he seems so hateable because he is winning and because he does seem to have a happy life and a beautiful family and stuff like that. It's like you don't hate him, you resent him, for being so good and so unbothered by things. And this show just completely leads into that, and also pokes fun at the idea that maybe some of this stuff isn't Steph Curry originally. So I like that the show will present us with, the Steph Curry that we all know and love. Maybe there's other side to him that we should be exploring, but it's hard to get there because he's just so damn perfect. And so through that, we get the story here of Danny. And Danny, as you talked about, is played by Adam Paley from Happy Endings. This guy, Danny, he was the original basketball phenom. They called him Judas Jesus. Yeah, but better than Steph because in about 8th grade, he was, I'd say, about a foot taller than all of the competitors on the basketball court. So in the year of our Lord, 1999, he's just unstoppable. They say he was getting recruited already. And the scouts were looking at him. Yeah. And it's because he was just so much better than all the kids around him. Even Steph Curry was looking up to him. He wanted to be him. He wanted to be like him. He stole a lot of the things. The celebration, the night celebration from him. All that stuff came here from Danny. But Danny has a dark past. We will find out in this documentary or mockumentary that they're making here that Danny, his rise to fame quickly plummeted when they found out that his dad had been telling everybody that he was 14 years old. It turns out he was 16. What was the age range?
I believe it was 16. I believe it was a 2-year age difference. Yes.
Yeah, or he was 12, or they were. I think it was that. Oh, that's what it was. He was 14, and everybody else was 12, I believe. And so he was a high school student playing with middle schoolers, essentially. And so this is not the same. This is not the same. We will see that he is not the tallest guy or the most fit guy either. So maybe he would have peaked around that time, when most high school students start to come into their basketball build. This guy got left behind and the whole world saw him as a fraud. And so his career plummets. He never gets to the highest heights that Steph Curry gets to. And honestly, it puts a rift in their friendship. They had known each other their whole lives to that point. And since then, they have not been in touch. But now he needs money. And because he needs money, he needs to go make friends with Steph Curry because Steph is made of money. Tyrone, his plan was to go and get money from his friend, and it snowballed to a lie about his kid having a terminal illness and needing money for the illness. This is like a slow-moving train wreck for 6 episodes.
Yeah, and to be honest, I like the setup because it actually surprised me. It wasn't that he was going to ask Steph Curry for money. He was going to steal his jersey. And the jersey. And that was going to be the way that he paid off the mob. The issue is he got caught stealing the jersey. And so he brings up a picture of his daughter in a Halloween costume, looking like she's sick, which is funny because she doesn't look like that when they finally see her. She got a head full of hair or whatever, and saying that she has some sort of unknown terminal illness. And it just kept exploding from there. And that was essentially the cliffhanger of every episode, was like, how much further at the end of episode 1, 2, 3, 4 can this get? And that's essentially the style of the mockumentary, which made me want to see the next episode every single time. And that's why I thought it was really good and really kind of written pretty well because of that. And we also meet Steph Curry's assistant, Kimberly, who also was a part of the tribe when they was young, right? They were called the Splash siblings, We also saw that.
Ego Nwodim. Ego Nwodim was the assistant Kimberly. I wasn't very familiar with her work, but I'm a big fan. After watching this, she's very funny. So between her, Adam Paley, and Steph Curry, you have this team, and they've now reunited. Her being Steph's assistant and basically the head or CEO, basically of whatever Steph is doing. She's very protective of Steph, and she also knows that Danny, like his dad, who started the original scam, might be full of shit. And it's her job to make sure she keeps all the people who are scamming, trying to get money out of Steph, away from him. And so throughout the entire mockumentary, they're trying to navigate, okay, is Danny scamming them? And how do I stop him? And how do I keep this from Steph? Because eventually Steph will end up in a slump. And that's not great. Steph is so used to winning that he does not do well when he's not doing well. And it's making him do worse. And so she's trying to protect Steph. But throughout, this is so funny. Adam Paley's character, Danny, is hilarious. I think everything about him is a scammer. We're led to kind of down this road of, you know, he is a scammer, but by the end of this, we learn that maybe he's a scammer because his dad's a scammer. We meet his dad, and his dad is one of the worst people probably that I've ever seen until I saw Danny.
Yeah. I think it was episode 5 because you heard all of the things that his dad did, but you got to see it in episode 5, which was a great view of that, to kind of get an idea of why he is the way he is. And also, I think with Kimberly and Danny's characters, both of them were funny in their own right, but it was a different form of funny. Like Kimberly had these quick like phrases that she would drop in. I think one time she was like, Rick Pitino gave his family a Range Rover when they was talking about, kind of referencing his dad or Danny's dad or something like that. And then, but Danny is kind of like this, like, I'm going to do stupid shit. And the stupid shit is going to be funny. And I'm going to have stupid perspective of why I think the way that I do involved in the whole thing. And so you just fall into this whole trap of what is Danny going to do? What is Danny going to do next? You got his ex-wife that gets involved. And the only reason this has become a mockumentary is because they follow Steph around everywhere he goes. And so...
Because he does stuff all the time.
Right, because he does stuff all the time. So now you have to sign this release. We have to record you. And then at the end of this, you have to sign this release to make sure that we can put this information out. So all of this is like the story of Danny Grossman. And it's a question that I have for you, actually, like Chappell. It's like, the essence I got from episode 1 is like, do you appreciate a redemption story more or a train wreck more?
That's tough. That's tough because throughout this, I was rooting on Danny's downfall. I wanted him to get caught so bad because I quickly identified that he's the problem. Like the show is trying to show us that he is a product of his dad.
Hurt people, hurt people.
Yeah, hurt people, right? And it's all he knows. He was raised like this. You'll see that even his daughter has some scammer in her at some points. And his daughter, she was one of the standout characters for me because she was wild. But Danny here, throughout, I'm like, a redemption story would be cool. But honestly, I just want to see this crash and burn because from jump, his heart was never in the right place. Don't get me wrong. He was a product of being raised by a scammer. And then having this horrible downfall at such an early age, which is clearly traumatic. But at the same time, now you're going to scam Steph Curry, and I don't like that. I don't like it. I don't like the way it's not sitting with me. And you're trying to scam Kimberly, and I'm like, oh no, this woman is doing nothing but doing her job and minding her business. And now you didn't showed up on Demon Time, and now you're trying to ruin these people's lives. They are now making a they're now lying about terminal illness. At some point, you have to draw the line and just say, okay, you're going to get what you deserve eventually. Now, does he get what he deserves? I think that's debatable. Tyrone, did you appreciate the redemption story that we ultimately got?
I wanted a redemption story. I wanted it. Once we got the redemption story, and then make no mistake about it for folks who haven't watched it, like there was a train wreck involved in it as well. We got both, okay?
Yeah, we
got both. I don't think the wreck was big enough. No. I thought the wreck should have been more. I thought there should have been more of a train wreck. It turned around too quickly. It was, and maybe that goes back to the question I had before. It's like, how quickly did they make this? You know what I mean? Because could they have put on a 7th episode to extend out the train wreck? I think so. Yeah. I think so. So I would say no. I didn't appreciate the redemption story. It came too quickly.
Yeah, because Danny sucks. I want to be very clear that throughout this series, he had several times that he could come clean, several times where he could get out of this. Because one thing that they really made a point of doing is showing Steph Curry as somebody who would be agreeable who would be willing to listen. He was very welcoming to Danny, who had just popped up in his life and tried to steal his jersey. Okay. So there's tons of times where Danny is saying, I just don't know when the right time is to tell Steph about the scam. Like, I need to let him know because he's being so nice to me. And Steph would come up to him and say, Penny, for your thoughts? You know, is there anything you want to talk about? Let me in. Let me be your friend. Vent to me. Tell me things. And Danny just could not bring himself to do it because of all the glitz and the glamour and the money. It was like the snowball was going down the hill and it was quickly turning into an avalanche.
At the same time, like, it make you feel bad for him. Like, I really did feel bad for him. Oh my gosh. Bro, I felt bad for him. I really did. I was like, clearly the trauma of what happened as a child kind of leaked into everything. It leaked into his marriage. It leaked into him being a father. Like Charlie, his daughter, I agree with you. She was great. Clearly loves him, right? But it is also, he doesn't really hold her accountable for it, right? It's more of a friendship than it is a father and daughter relationship. And a lot of that seeps into it and comes from what he went through with his dad. So it's kind of like you feel bad. And so every time he comes up with us, like, hey, I'm going to flip it into this type of positive. Like, hey, even though she doesn't have a terminal illness, I'm going to say she's cured. And then we're going to take this money for a charity basketball game, which is what Steph Curry ended up doing for him. And we're going to put that into another terminal illness. Like you want that to happen. You want that to come true. And you know, it just never.
I didn't want that to come true. I didn't want that to come true at all. I was rooting against this man. Now, the only times that I was ever rooting for him is when the scamming got really good. So it's a thin line to walk with me. It's like, on the one hand, when you're being sloppy, you're just coming up with random lies on the spot. I'm like, all right, you're going to get your comeuppance soon. It's going to be great. But when he started to step it up, when you really start to see the Danny's father reflected in Danny, that's when I said, oh, okay, cool. Because throughout, we'll hear little moments and little seeds of Danny has been like this forever. You know, he talks about how, I guess in episode 2, they're talking about how Danny framed Kimberly when they were kids for killing the class pet, right? We will find out at the end of this all that he did it for Steph anyway, but he still framed her. And so you're like, okay, he kind of had the scammer vibe in him at different points, but it started to get really good for me when him and Kimberly are playing kind of like this cold war of who's going to flinch first, who's going to fold first. Danny is trying to get this celebrity basketball game off the ground. Kimberly does not trust Danny, and so she's pretending to be helping with the celebrity basketball game, but there's no movement on it at all. So Danny's waiting on her to admit that she's not actually helping, and she's waiting on him to admit that there's no celebrity basketball game. Like, this is all a scam. And he beats her. He has Kimberly up there. Oh man, I'm sorry. Drake actually hates Steph Curry, and they hate each other. And sorry, my bad. I didn't know your daughter was dying. I feel so bad. And he's sitting there looking at the camera like, checkmate. And see, in those moments, I was like, all right, I'm kind of team Danny. But for the most part, I needed him to go down.
So that was the cringy moment because I'm sitting here watching it, right? All right, so let's build this up real quickly, right? Because remember, at the end of every episode, there's like a cliffhanger, right? So at the end of episode 1, it was like, okay, the ex-wife knows now, right? And then at the end of episode 2, it was like, okay, the daughter knows now, right? And then and Charlie, scammer Junior, it was like, all right, bet. Let's do this, right? It started a whole TikTok. She started skipping school. Like, she made it a thing. Like, she really turned it up and tuned into it. You know what I mean, right? So that was kind of like the whole build up to it. And so when the Drake situation happened on the plane, right? You're Charlie saying no, and I'm shaking my head with her. I'm like, no, like, just no, let it go. And he just kept egging it on. And to your point, it worked. Like, it worked. It worked. And like, the comeuppance happens clearly, right? We know this from the beginning. As we're watching this, we know something's going to go down to where somebody finds out, and then we're good, right? And then it ends it all. But I thought that was the comeuppance. I thought that was the moment. I was like, oh, he about to mess up. He's doing too much. And I think that's what I appreciated about this show is like every time you thought it was doing too much, there was another level. There was something else that was going to happen on the horizon. That's why you should watch it, is because you don't expect the next thing to happen, the next thing to come up. And that's what was good about it. So yeah.
Yeah, you talk about Charlie finding out. Obviously, she's not in on the plan where Danny's telling everybody that she's sick and she's dying. But once she's in on it, she is on board. She's kind of like, all right, this is kind of cool. Like her and her dad have a lot in common. She loves her dad, clearly. So she's like, okay, I'm all in. If some of the money can go to charity as well as make sure that my dad isn't murdered for, not paying his debts, that's great for me. So we see Charlie the influencer at Charlie the sickest on Instagram, racking up views and followers and subscribers and stuff like that. Yeah. The Cybertruck killed me. You know what I'm saying? So it was fun to watch. It really was. But by the end of that episode, even Charlie's trying to come clean. She's at school saying, all right, y'all, I have an announcement. I'm not sick. And the kids are like, yes, mama, sick doesn't define you, slay queen. She's like, no, seriously, I'm not sick. I'm not sick. They're like, yeah, me neither, girl. You're so brave. She can't even come down because the absurdity is getting so high that each of the people that Danny gets in on the scam, they all start tapping out. First Charlie, then eventually her mom / Danny's ex-wife, Sam, she starts tapping out as well because she's dating a geneticist or something. Like she's dating a doctor who is so concerned with Charlie and her health that he's like, why don't you just let me help you? This is Steph Curry's doctor. This man is using state-of-the-art.
But also set up by Kimberly. Yeah.
Exactly. This is Steph Curry's doctor. So we know he is state-of-the-art. He is as good as he gets. And he's sitting here trying to figure out, well, why won't you just let me work on the kid? Why won't you let me try something on the kid? If she's dying, why can't I help? But they have to keep this charade going. And so Sam and the doctor, Dr. Josh, they start messing around. And so now even Sam wants out. Everybody wants out of this except for Danny, he literally cannot go any further on his own. Like he just keeps going higher and higher through this scam to where he's running out of a runway. And it gets even worse when his dad is actually brought in. Because him and his dad haven't talked in a while. But since Steph is going through a slump, they need one favor from Danny, and that is to get his dad on board with this. What did you think about Danny's dad once we saw him as he was depicted in the real time?
So the whole I can't remember the name of like the group that he was in, where they would go to like high schools or whatever, and they would act like they're on drugs or they're into sex or they're into alcohol or whatever, and they would basically play up the issues or the wrongdoings of getting into those addictions. And it was a group of 3. It was Danny's dad and then a husband and a wife, and then the husband of the wife has never done any type of drugs or alcohol or anything, but Danny's dad and the wife, they were addicts, right? And they were sober and went through that whole process or whatever. So that's like the first almost like entry into Danny's dad and what he is and what he's become. But what they always kept kind of clinging on to is that Danny's dad is a great coach, right? And so he's a terrible dad, but he's a great coach. And so that's why he ended up being involved in it, is because, like you said, Steph is in a slump. And so we need Danny's dad to tell him how to get out of the slump. So I thought the way they inserted him into the process, I thought was pretty decent. I thought it was in line of how you can get him involved, and for him to kind of be needed. I would say be needed in that is where he kind of came into play. But I think things start to go awry whenever now Steph is having these news conferences, and in the news conferences he's mentioning Charlie. Yeah. And so Danny's dad is watching TV and it's like, my granddaughter is sick. Oh, yeah. I gotta. No, I'm sober now. Like I'm trying to be involved. Like we gotta get in the mix here. And so that's where really the thing started to break down. Because like you mentioned, people are trying to step out of the process, right? I think it was funny. Charlie was like, things are lonely now because I'm out of school, right? All the teachers are just letting me pass. The little boy that she wanted to go to the dance with was like, I don't want to be your first and your last kiss.
Yeah. It sucks.
It sucks. It sucks having this illness. Like, clearly, you know what I mean? And so, but that wasn't really the breakdown of it all. The breakdown was Danny's dad insertion into the process. That's when everything really kind of went to hell. And honestly, I don't know why Sam told the truth. Why did she tell the truth to him? She don't know that man.
Oh, to the doctor?
To the dad.
Oh, to Mitch. Yeah. So, I mean, Mitch does show up. Now, Mitch and Danny, they have a very interesting relationship because they're estranged. You know, once he ruined his life, he was like, all right, I don't want to ever talk to you again, blah, blah, blah. But when he goes and confronts him, Mitch says, well, I've been trying to, reach out all these years. And Danny's like, oh, yeah, sure you have. He's like, no, you didn't open my letters that I've been sending you? He's like, yeah, I mean, I didn't open the letters. I didn't want to talk to you. He said, but I've been sending you money in all the letters. $100 in every letter, 15 years, I don't know, and $500 on holidays. And then I want $43,000 on a scratch off. I've been trying to make amends. And now he's in Gamblers Anonymous. We know that he's, promoting, being drug free and sex free and all this other stuff for the kids, like you were talking about with his improv group. And so there's a lot of reasons why, anybody else would look at Mitch and say, he seems like he's on the up and up in comparison to somebody like Danny, who is currently scamming. And so when Mitch shows up, he's just like, I just want to look at all the positive things I'm doing in my life. I just want to be here for my grandchild who's dying. It's like, what do you do at that point? Like, this man is concerned about his grandchild, and you just go let this man believe that his grandchild is dying.
Yes, he's alive strong. He's estranged. I don't think we've ever heard of Sam having a relationship or even knowing about. She just knows about the situation with the dad, right? Charlie doesn't even know about his Danny's childhood. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of like, Sam, you have no relationship with this guy. Why? There's no reason for you. There's no reason for you to tell him about it. There's no reason. Like,
yeah.
You think the reason is because that's the granddaughter? That's the only reason?
No, I mean, I just think that, Mitch has also got a lot of scammer in him too. So he's showing up to see the kid before she dies. And, we see, Kim is doing her whole back and forth with Danny. But I think that Mitch is still working on Sam. He's trying to get in with Danny. So for him, he's trying to bond with his granddaughter and his child that he hasn't seen in a while. And I think at some point, Sam wanted out. I think this is another way that she's like, I have to tell somebody, because it's starting to snowball for her too. So the problem, though, is that Mitch is not as wholesome as he would like to remain, right? Like, he is wholesome in this moment, but he's also a scammer deep down in his soul. He's an addict. He's a gambler. And Danny is dragging him into this as well. He's now going to be a part of it because he has to help Steph. And Danny has to play nice to get him to help Steph. And so I think for them, they're folding. The secret is coming out. But it's now in the hands of the biggest and the baddest scammer of them all. And, it starts off like Mitch is probably not the greatest dad, but he kind of sucks as a human. It's really bad. And so now that Mitch is in on this as well, it's really going to get out of control. And Danny doesn't even want it. He has no ambition to be cool with his dad because of their past. So I thought it was a very cool story. I thought that seeing Mitch being held accountable for Danny's past while Danny is simultaneously doing the same exact thing to Charlie, I thought that was pretty cool. What is there? Is there any difference between what Danny is doing to Charlie versus what his dad did to him? I don't really see it.
Worse. It's worse. He say this guy's crying. He just said you was 2 years older than you was. You said your daughter is dying. I mean, like, granted, the lie is worse. The lie is worse, for sure. the trauma from the lie can be worse, you know, if you don't break it down and stop it, right? It can be worse. The parts in between, though, is better. Because getting the party at Tao, because Steph bought it out over Violet B, or whatever his shorty name is.
Violet G. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like getting the birthday party over that, right? Getting the TikTok and getting the Cybertruck and, you know, having the friends and all of that stuff. Like even Sam, like having the chance to hang out with Aisha Curry and all that stuff. Like it's hard to answer it fully to say it's worse. There are things around it. The beginning of it and the end of it is certainly worse. But that part in the middle, boy, that's some fun. That's some fun stuff, right? That life you live in is absolutely amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
It's like the story. I mean, we're watching this happen, but Danny is having to look in a mirror and look at himself and see a picture of his dad. You know, he's looking and saying, I can now see how my dad made this mistake, you know, where you told a lie and then it just started to spiral and now you can't get out of it. We saw that Danny Grossman was the youngest kid to ever be on the Wheaties box, you know, the youngest athlete to ever be on the Wheaties box. We know that he was given a Range Rover, you know, he was the face of basketball at the tender age of 14/12, you know, whichever one you want to look at. And it was all because of his dad. I think the reason why Danny's scam is even worse is because he includes Charlie in on the scam. Danny had no clue that his dad lied about his age. You know, he had no clue that he was 14 playing the basketball with 12-year-olds. He thought he was exceptional. When in reality, he was just old, you know? And so here, Charlie's in on the scam. And I think that's what makes what Mitch does even worse is because he ruined Danny's life almost without his like participation and consent. Whereas had Charlie, you know, and she's a kid, so I'm not expecting her to come in and say you know, like, shut it down, Dad. But at the same time, by including her, it felt a little less gross. You know, it felt kind of like, okay, once she was in on it, had Charlie been like from jump, absolutely not, Dad. I'd probably been like, all right, you suck, you know, because she's begging you not to put her life at risk. But she was into it. She saw all the benefits. That scammer gene is in her too. She saw all the benefits that could come from this, the clout, the nightclub parties and all that kind of stuff. And she wanted in until she wanted out. And eventually they all wanted out, except for Danny.
And that's what turned Mitch back to his addiction is because it was like, all right, I see Danny doing it. But to know that Charlie's in on it as well, that like, what did I do? You know what I mean? Like, I'm no good. And it turned him back into addiction. And I love the grocery store scene because you see him go into it and you see him buy the bottle or put the bottle of vodka on the little thing to the grocery clerk. And then you see him walk out of the store. And so the same question, right? Do you want to see a redemption story? Do you want to see a train wreck? You're thinking, oh man, good on Mitch. Like he made it out. He didn't buy it. Like he didn't step back into it. No. You learn later on that the only reason he couldn't buy that bottle of vodka is because he left his wallet in the car.
Yeah, exactly. Like he was all in on backsliding, falling off the wagon. He's okay with it. He put up a valiant effort until he didn't. You know, I will say that. There was a moment where I think Danny says, you know, like, play me in one-on-one or XYZ will happen. You know, he's like, Danny, I can't play you in one-on-one. I literally can't gamble at all. And he's like, I mean, what? So it's not worth your relationship with your son? He's like, no, I cannot gamble. I am an addict and I cannot do this. Those first couple episodes, Mitch was fighting for his life. By episode 5, oh no, he completely off the wagon. And he failed. His friends are trying to do an intervention for him, and he drags them off the wagon too. Both of them were addicted to drugs, and now both of them are back just like high as a kite, drinking.
He got the husband who ain't never done a drug or liquor or whatever in his life on it. He didn't have with the dang wife. Like,
yeah. It's all bad. It's all bad. We see both sides. We see Danny showing up to talk to Mitch and seeing through Mitch. You know, Danny knows, nah, he's a drunk. We don't see that side in episode 5. At the beginning, I'm sorry, at the end of episode 4, like about episode 5, we're getting Danny's perspective, But then they flip it and they show us all the stuff Mitch has been doing in the background. And he's waking up off a bender and going and putting on a roll real quick and going out and being like, oh, Danny, I'm so happy. You know, just my sobriety journey, this, that, and the other. And Danny's like, nah.
I see right through that.
Yeah, I can smell the liquor on your breath, player. I know exactly what this is. So I loved it. I thought there were some very cool and interesting choices made with the way this was shown. I thought that Steph came out very likable. It's like, if you hate Steph Curry, you hate Steph Curry, and then anybody can ever do to make you change that. But I think that if you came in a positive about Steph or a Steph Curry agnostic, this was fun. It was it talked about Steph, but it more like highlighted, you know, I guess all like the good nature of him in a fun way that really didn't lean into like, oh, this is Steph Curry like trying to convince everybody he's the greatest basketball player of all time.
Right.
This is more like you said, a fun way of highlighting a player that a lot of people know and hate, or know and love, or know and love to hate. You know, it just kind of gave a different outlook on a basketball player that is very well known. I mean, you probably find very few sports fans in the world who don't know who Steph Curry is to an extent.
Yeah, I agree. I think like as far as the show is concerned, right, it draws you in. I thought the first 2 episodes was hilarious. Like top. I wrote down so much stuff of lines. I was like, yo, that's funny. And then I think episode 3 and beyond, it kind of turned into a little bit more of a serious vibe or whatever. So I think they did a good job of kind of drawing you in, getting you engaged in the story, making you laugh. And then 3 on down to 6, it was like a little bit more of a serious turn. Still some funny moments in there, of course, but definitely more like somber music, you know, in certain moments and things like that. Should we spoil how it all broke down? Should we
do you think? You know, we reviewed the series. If you want to go watch it, go check it out. You know, it's a fun watch from the beginning. You know exactly what you're getting, but it is so funny. I think that is the most important part about this. Like, the plot is cool, the writing is dope, the acting, they're all great in their own way. But I think ultimately, if you want to go check this out, you're looking for something fun to watch, something to laugh at, something lighthearted that you can just sit through real quick. Nothing too stressful. It's a little blue. So it's a little adult. I'll give it that. But for the most part, this is great. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about how it all pans out, Ty.
Yeah. So remember, there's a camera crew that is watching everything that Steph is doing. And so that same camera crew ends up following Danny around, ends up following Mitch around, ends up following Sam around, the doctor, and Charlie as well, right? Everybody, Kim, all of them are all involved in this mockumentary, essentially, documentary if you're inside the show. And after the doctor does the test on Charlie, he clearly realizes ain't shit wrong with her. Like, she's clean bill of health, you know what I mean? So brings in Danny and talks to him in the office. Danny was like breaking down, thought this was the end of it, but realizes that, hey, the doctor is on the HIPAA laws and he can't say shit about it. He can't say shit about it. So it kind of extends it, but where it all breaks down is that one of the members of the camera crew was kind of like done with it. As you mentioned earlier, Chappell, like, everybody wants to get out. And the member of the camera crew is not void of that. One of them wants to get out as well. And so it gets into a situation where there's like almost like a blackmail situation with the lead camera person or the lead producer. And the lead producer wants to buy into telling the lie, but one of the camera crew members doesn't, who also is in love with the lead producer. Yeah. The lead producer ends up telling Kim, and that's when it breaks down to charity basketball, where Kim comes to Danny and says, yo, like, tell the effing truth. Steph doesn't like how Kim is talking to Danny. Kim gets essentially like not fired, but it's kind of like go on a leave of absence for a little bit, which is the ultimate breakdown. All you see about this whole thing from the beginning is Kim and Steph's relationship is tight. She has his back. And so to see that, that's kind of almost like the last straw. And Danny finally feels like some sort of way about it. And so after Mitch tries to take the fall for it, Danny comes clean at the charity basketball game, Steph knocks the shit out of him, which I thought was a great part because, again, people think he's soft, right? That's what people do with light-skinned folks. Listen, I hear all the time. He is light-skinned. I hear all the time. We uniting. We ain't soft. He puts the shit out of him and knocks him out or whatever. And that's how it all kind of breaks down. And that is the downfall of the whole thing. But as we mentioned before, and I'll let you, Chappell, kind of talk about it. After the downfall, it wasn't too hard of a fall.
Yeah, because Steph is dope. And I think that's really what it comes down to. Like anybody else would have probably taken this very personally because this could have been the end of Steph's career. You know, he's not in on it, but he is leading the charge for a charity basketball game for a scammer. It's a charity that does not exist. You know, Steph is creating a charity in the name of a dying child who is not dying. And so this could be awful. He's raising money. There are donors giving money. But Steph even says at one point, I'm Steph Curry. I can bounce back from any of this. Like, you know, if this is a lie, Steph initially thought this was Mitch. Mitch was taking the fall for this. And so, you know, Mitch has been scamming since I was a kid. People were going to I'll give the money back. I'll match the donations. I'm Steph Curry. This is not going to be a problem. Right. So when he finds out it's Danny, it's a personal hit to Steph. But it doesn't derail Steph in any way. So him and Danny are able to bounce back after he punches Danny in the face. Now, Danny, I think his journey is probably more interesting than the fallout he could have got from Steph.
You know what I would have liked to see? Just to extend it just a little bit more. I think it reached the end. I think the timing was pretty good on it about it reaching the end. What if Danny has sued Steph Curry?
Yeah, like because he needs the money still. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't need a redemption story. I don't. Like, if you tell me this is the best scammer who ever existed and it's a documentary about that, I'm like, I'm in. But if you tell me, yeah, this is the scammer who's not very good at scamming and he just keeps narrowly, escaping the moment where he should get caught, that's less interesting to me. You know, I really want to see that he's either the best of the best or, you know, eventually it'll be his own downfall. And so I would have liked to see something like that. But again, this is Steph. He's unbothered. So he punches him in the face because that kind of sucks. But ultimately, this is the story of Danny's journey into humanity. You know, he is a scammer because his dad is a scammer. And as far as he's concerned, he cannot get around that. But we will see that he starts eventually being a better ex-husband to his ex-wife, Sam. He starts being a better father to Charlie. And then he's even able to look at his situation with his dad and forgive him. You know, he really does forgive his dad and breaks down in the car crying. And this is a grudge he's been holding against his dad for 25 years. So for him to sit there in the car and say, you know, dang, I actually could see how my dad made these mistakes, how this got out of control. And I have to be able to move on because I was willing to do the same thing for my kid, you know? So it was a fun ride. I thought one of the funniest lines is when he asked his dad how long he's getting in jail. And his dad's like, yeah, about 15. He's like, 15 days or 2 weeks, give or take or so. He's like, no, 15 years, Danny. 15 years. I'm going to jail forever for what you did. Like, I'm going to prison. Yeah. Thank you. There were so many lines here.
So many lines. There was plenty of lines where once Charlie, I think the show got extremely funny once Charlie knew. Because all of the lines leaned in to the death. Like, I think it was one time where somebody called Charlie like an angel or something like that. And Danny was like, well, soon to be angel. Like, yeah, and it just leads straight into it. Is extremely, like, the lines on this show is top notch. And it's like a ludicrous style of rapping where it's kind of like those one hitters, you know what I mean? Like it comes quick, and then it leaves, you know what I mean? It doesn't linger. It's like a quick little thing, little soft little mumble to the side, and then move on to the next conversation. So I thought they did that pretty well and kind of like this office, you know, the office type of format and talking to the camera and things like that, or reality TV show with like confessionals and things like that. Those were some of the best moments for sure with the show.
Yeah, it's interesting to me too because Mitch, he falls off the wagon because he knows about the scam, right? He's also the ultimate scammer, But that's the thing that pushed him back into his scamming ways. It was Danny's reluctance to tell the truth that was kind of like, had Mitch not been such a scammer and Danny not picked up some of these habits from Mitch, Mitch would probably still be sober. But again, he falls off the wagon because he finds out that, oh my God, I did this. And by falling off the wagon, he makes everything much worse. But yeah, with so many, like you said, so many good lines and so many references and stuff that we've seen in real life. We saw Steve Kerr as one of the people that they interview, and they talk about how Mitch is the best coach that that Steph has ever had. I'm sorry. He's like, yeah, what the hell is that? Meanwhile, Steve Kerr getting a lot of backlash for the Olympics in his coaching style.
Exactly.
So,
I thought it was perfect. Yeah.
It really was. That. I think the conversation about Drake versus Steph and their beef, because it's like, remember that time they got into it on the sidelines? They still have a grudge about that. I loved all of this.
Remember when Danny and Sam was at the damn dinner table, was eating dinner, and the waiter comes up and is like, are there any allergies? And they're like, yeah, bees. She
said, so your food allergy is bees? She said, yeah, I just don't need them anywhere near me. I said, I low-key feel it, As a person with food allergies, I got it. I understand.
Right.
Also, everything with Kimberly was hilarious. The idea that she is so effective and efficient that by the end, she said, yes, I mean, don't get me wrong. This got out of hand. Steph, he cut half my hours, so I'm down to 84 hours a week. At
one time, I think it was episode 2, she was like, I had to strap my titties down like Mulan.
She said, I do whatever it takes to keep up with the guys. Smoke cigars, pop honey packs. She was one of the funniest parts. Like between everything about Kimberly and then leaning into Steph Curry's just ridiculous amount of wealth was also so funny. He bought the bar just to shut it down so that a little kid could not have her birthday party on the same day as Charlie's. Now, on the one hand, that sounds awful. Like you went and bought a bar to shut it down so that you could take joy from a child. But we do hear from Danny that Violet G, the little girl, is a little bit of a bee.
Right.
And she said, are you calling a 12-year-old a bitch?
Yes.
He says, well, if the shoe fits. So plenty of one-liners here, plenty of moments that were just so funny, but I thought this was great. I think if you're considering watching it, it's hilarious. Go check it out. And then let us know what you think in the comments here or recapkickback.com/subscribe. You can go in and subscribe, but you can also email us. Let us know what you're thinking. That's recapkickback@gmail.com. Or like I said, in the YouTube comments, youtube.com/@recapkickback. You should be able to see this podcast and all the rest of the stuff we're talking about here on Recap Kickback, all on the YouTube page and in our dedicated podcast feed. Ty, how'd you feel about this overall?
Overall, solid show. It's not something that I necessarily need to watch again, right? I don't think it has like high replay value or anything like that.
Nah.
I think the initial watch is good. I think everybody would appreciate it. I thought all of the actors and actresses really played their specific roles very well. What I appreciated about it the most is that you had multiple different levels of comedy styles in one show. Nobody had a similar comedy style or anything like that. And I appreciate laughing in different ways and at different things. And as we talked about before, it's the one-liners. There were so many one-liners. Can't remember them all, can't write them all down or whatever, but I implore everybody who's listening, but please watch it and just take note of all the damn one-liners in the mockumentary. It was done very, very well. Very well.
Yeah, it's a good time. It really is. So yeah, shout out to Adam Paley, Adam, and Steph and Ego for giving me something to laugh at. It's a quick watch, 30-minute episodes, nothing crazy. Check it out. And then, of course, check out all the rest of the stuff we have coming here on Recap Kickback. Ty, what else you got going on in your world?
I got nothing, man. Y'all see, Recap Kickback is my world. So whenever you want to see me, I'll be on here every now and then, kicking it with Chappell and some others very soon, So keep coming back to Recap Kickback.
Yeah, we gotta have time on some more. So send us some suggestions about what you want us to talk about. You can always tweet us at Recap Kickback or contact us on whatever social media platform you have at Recap Kickback on all of them, or join our Facebook group, facebook.com/Recap Kickback for that. And so until next time, we got a lot more coverage coming your way. I think we'll be talking about Black Hollywood soon with Mari. I think at the end of the month, Fight Night drops, and AJ is going to come join us for that. More of Being Camille AF coming soon as well. LaTanya. We're going to bring back all the heavy hitters here on Recap Kickback to talk about much, much more. And so check that out. And remember to subscribe and keep up with the podcast. And until next time, you ain't got to go home, but you cannot stay here. We will talk to you all later. Peace.
The air I'm breathing can't feel my chest. Wait on life, I wanna hold my breath. I'ma get in my goddamn self.